All right, we are live. Good evening. This is Attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. We hope to be talking about some evidence issues tonight. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Darren Guay. Mr. Darren, how are you this evening?
We're excellent, Mr. Davis. Excellent, excellent. Thanks for asking.
Very good. And we also have a very special guest, Miss Christy Little. Hello, Miss Little. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. So where are you streaming in from?
Northeast Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess there's some CPS things going on in Mississippi, huh?
Yes. Yeah, there are some things that need to be looked into or corrected.
Well, tell me about your story. What's going on?
It's concerning a family member, but his situation is already been handled. But we one of the most recent occurrences. This is kind of like a silly situation here. He got a report that he had an argument with his girlfriend. They come out, made a huge to-do about it, tried to say that there was like violence involved in all this. No police were called, no ambulance was gone. His visitation with his children was sanctioned, I guess you would say, because it went from overnight visits to only daytime visits. Now, he got those back, obviously, towards the end. However, there was another incident involving the ex-wife where a violent act was taken upon to him and another family member on their own property. There was pepper spray involved and a weapon, and the children were present, and no one thought that was important enough to report or to do anything about.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two incidences to begin all of this?
There was one, he had an argument with his girlfriend. They tried to say that there was domestic violence or whatever taking place. There was not. No police were called, no ambulance was given, but yet he was sanctioned with his visitation. However, the mother of the children attacked the ex-father-in-law and ex-husband with pepper spray and with her boyfriend, and the children were present. The boyfriend had a weapon in his vehicle on the private property, and the guardian ad litem didn't think that was important enough to report.
So one time with the kids present and one time's without the kids present.
Right. But one time involving the ex-husband, one time involving the ex-wife. Yeah.
Okay.
The ex-husband gets in trouble, the ex-wife, nothing happens.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I found, though, through time and dealing with them, they insisted on him signing some papers. One thing, after dealing with them having 22 false allegations, talk about abuse of the legal system, to where the woman was told she could not contact CPS anymore by a chancery judge, that she had to go through a guardian ad litem, and he was to be given 7 days to decide if it was worth reporting or not. That's pretty bad, but there's no penalties, no consequences, no nothing applied to her. None whatsoever.
So
clearly stated.
Wow.
Can I ask you something? What do you know about alienation of a parent? Is that a big deal?
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's called parental alienation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where someone tries to separate the child from the parent. Generally, it's the other parent, but it could be anyone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could be a family member, it could be a friend. You know, it just depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, they don't make it illegal to have such cruelty done, do they, Mr. Davis? It's not. There's no law that says that you can't. Well, no law saying that one parent. There's no penalty for a parent pushing alienation onto another parent. Correct?
Well, in California, there is.
Oh, there is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I can't comment about Maine or Mississippi,
Mm-hmm.
but in California, there definitely is. And I'd be surprised if there weren't laws in Mississippi or Maine that would prevent such, parental alienation.
I think the problem there would be finding someone that would help you enforce that. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a whole nother story, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a whole
That's
nother
888-888-6582.
What was that you said? Well, I mean, we just covered, 22 unfounded, unsubstantiated claims. You would think that eventually people would get tired of coming to visit you,
Mhm.
but no, they could repeatedly come. Luckily, they're not bothering anybody anymore. She's finally ceased on some of that, but that's pretty much because, unfortunately, in order to give the children some peace, it was best to fighting for them seemed to be causing havoc in their lives. So, I mean, 7 years of this was a lot. So we had to step aside. Didn't know what else to do.
Well, how did CPS get involved and what did they do?
Nothing. They just harassed us. They harassed my brother. From what I read in a report that they had, all of these claims, every one of them. I mean, it went from like there was no food in the house. Okay, well we kind of, and when I say 22, they were all different allegations. They were not consistent. It was like no food in the house, he was driving too fast with the kids in the car. I mean, it's just ridiculous stuff. Like one time it was reported on the absences of the children. Well, the absences of the children from school were because of her and her babysitter. Those were the days that they were with her, and we even pulled the reports. But what good did it do? None.
So what is the status of the children right now? Where are the children? Are they in custody of the state? Are they
No, they're
the
with
father?
they're
The
with,
mother? I'm trying to get
well,
a
they're
grasp
with their
of this here.
mother.
Okay.
They're with their mother. One of the last allegations brought them into that the mother had. She tried to bypass CPS, so she went to local law enforcement. When she found out that they were going to investigate her too, she decided she wanted to withdraw her claim. And this is all in a report. I read this for myself. They wouldn't let her do that. Of course, that brought them to youth court, and it was something that was supposed to be like a 30-day safety plan wound up being like 120 days, and they had not turned any of their paperwork in, and it was just dragging feet. I mean, this went on. It was nonsense. A judge even apologized for them not having their stuff together, and it was ridiculous. But they were basically told, do you want to leave them with the mom for now, or do you want them to go into the system or whatever? And then they what does that say? Can we all call in, or was one, or is this it?
Oh, that's something completely
Oh,
different.
I'm sorry. But anyway, the youth court judge got with the guardian ad litem and a couple of attorneys, and they determined that it would be best that the guardian ad litem take over and determine if any of these allegations were worth reporting to CPS, because there had been 22 or 24 all of them unsubstantiated, unfounded. One CPS worker even volunteered and said, "Hey, I will testify on your behalf if you will issue a subpoena to me." And then again, you got to find somebody willing to do that. So, yeah. And I'd heard on one of your shows previously that if you were in youth court, you were supposed to be offered an attorney or something. That's not happening here.
They don't do that in Mississippi? That's interesting.
No. You can go in there holding your own rear end. Yeah. Because they won't. No. I'm serious. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
No, yes. To my knowledge, the few people that I have spoke to in this area that's been to the youth court system have never been offered an attorney.
So all 22 of those allegations that were made against were come out unfounded. There was no ever, I don't know what they call it out there, but the substantiation, like there was no degree made of file that the state says, when the ruling, when they say that you're actually guilty of abuse or neglect. Out here, they call it substantiate. I don't know what they call it on the other parts.
They say unfounded or unsubstantiated. Yeah. There was no evidence.
But none of those episodes. So just able to move freely and all that. Nothing. Wow. That's crazy.
Nope. Not one. But the one time that there was violence involved, where she was arrested and charged with domestic violence, they did not feel the need to do anything.
Wow, that's insane. I can't believe I just
can't believe the great state of Mississippi.
It's the great state of the United States. It seems like everywhere around, they get to pick and choose. There's no level of continuity for what they decide is, when the kids are in danger or when they're not. I mean, it's got to be awful. It's got to be awful for people like Mr. Davis if every day he doesn't know whether he's defending the same thing as yesterday because Connie Jean's the caseworker or because Debbie Sue is. There is like imminent danger, for instance. There's no guaranteed one solid ruling that says imminent danger is abuse of a child, bleeding, bruises, cracking bones. It's just whatever they want to use. I mean, that's just so. Mr. Davis, how do you even prepare yourself for these things every day? And like looking at, like she says, 22 different allegations. Like, how do you even begin? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, how do you stop somebody like that?
One step at a time. The hardest part of any case is what they call marshaling the facts, meaning organizing the facts, understanding them, and preparing some type of defense for them. That's the hardest part. It's not the law. And it's sometimes, there's an old joke among lawyers. Actually, it's not a joke, it's an old saying. When you have a case, the number one thing that you should do is argue the facts. Okay? Not the law. The second thing you should do if the facts aren't going for you is argue the equities, the fairness of it all. If neither the facts or the equities are going for you, then you argue the law. And this is kind of, what people learn in law school, maybe judges look at it. But, most of the people that I talk to on these streams or just in general, they want to do it the reverse. They want to argue the law first. And, I've heard people tell me, other lawyers, that if you have to rely on the law to win a case, you don't have a very good chance. So people, just think, oh, I'm going to go in there and argue the law. Supreme Court says this, Constitution says that, evidence code, blah, blah, blah. That's not how you win a case. I was luckily enough almost 20 years ago to attend something called the Jerry Spence Trial Lawyers College in Wyoming. And if you want to Google it, it's GERRY. And the first thing they told us on the first day was, listen, forget everything you learned in law school, because that's not how you win trials. Like, what?
Right. Oh, I'm here for law. I'm here for the law.
Right.
No.
And since I've, gotten involved in this type of lawyering, the most important thing in a case is not the law. Don't get me wrong. It does mean something. All right. But it's not the most important thing in the case if you want to win. If you got to win, if you want to win, you should be concentrating on the story. Now, notice I didn't say the facts. I said the story. So when you're a lawyer or a litigant, you're trying to convince a judge or a jury. Okay. The best way to persuade any human being about anything is to tell the story. Every one of us has our own unique stories. A lot of people don't want to share those stories. They may be embarrassed. They may be, not secure enough to tell that story. But that's how you persuade people. You can just reflect on yourselves, but there was, before I went to the trial lawyers college, there was shit I would never talk about with anyone. Those are in the deep recesses of my mind, never to be known by anyone. And I bet a lot of us and a lot of people watching this feel the same way. Right? But one of the things that the Spence College taught me was, if you want to persuade somebody of something, you have to let that go. You have to accept that. You have to, as Jerry would say, put your arms around it and love it.
So when you're storytelling, what are the most important? Do you start from A to B, or do you just hit the important fact, not facts? You're not talking about facts, but are you talking about the highlight incidents, if you will? Like leave out the petty family team meetings and go right to like when there was a police action or something, or how do you?
No. You know, I was talking about this with a new client today, and the client was telling me a lot about the facts and about the law, what he perceived the law to be. Okay. And he was only 50% right.
Right.
Mhm.
And I asked him a question that nobody had asked him. And the question was, tell me the real reason why this happened. Why are the kids and the mother saying these things?
Because they wanted some property.
Sometimes it goes back to money. I'm involved in another case where the adult kids who got cut off, literally financially cut off, are now making the parents' lives hell,
Mhm.
making all kinds of false allegations regarding the younger kids who are still at home. Younger kids saying, oh, it's all a lie.
Mhm.
But CPS, for whatever reason, has jumped in and decided to believe the adult kids who've been financially cut off.
Mhm. Yeah, they didn't want to hear anything we had to say. One of the children was found making a video in another state. She wasn't even supposed to leave the state with them. Some other kid found this video and showed it to us. You know, you're talking about the border of Texas. You're looking at human trafficking and other stuff, and this is a cute little girl, you know, down here. And I was concerned about her. There was no adult in the room. Where was she? You know, this is a very promiscuous video that's being made, and it wasn't like a bad deal, you know, but it was not what we would consider appropriate in our area at all for a girl of her age. We reported it, and nobody seemed to be concerned.
You know, I want to tell you something because I do have a little bit of experience with your state, and this is how I have it. I represented the mother in a case up in Northern California. I won't say the county. This is several years ago. And the allegations that were being made, you know, they were kind of what I would call a wobbler.
Mm,
Right? And eventually, the kids were sent to the grandparents in Mississippi.
hmm,
And in Mississippi, they were like, what's California talking about? This is not child abuse. But the grandparents took the kids in,
mhm.
um, and Mississippi was glad to have them because, you know, that federal money follows the kids.
Of course.
And, but the attitude of the Mississippi social workers was kind of like, live and let be, live and let live, you know? Come on,
Mhm,
nobody got hurt.
Mhm.
You
mhm,
know, this is kind of a, you know, not a serious thing.
mhm,
You know, and I've noticed this from county to county, sometimes from state to state. The way CPS laws are implemented is different.
mhm.
It's a lot different. And the funny thing is, and a lot of people don't know this, but all of the CPS laws from all of the states have their genesis in federal regulations from the Department of Health and Human Services.
Mhm.
But it's like everything else in the law and in life. Depending on what section of the country you're in, people look at things differently.
Yes.
Now, you're in Mississippi, I'm in California. Just by definition, people think differently about different things.
Mhm,
And then Darren, he's in Maine,
mhm.
and that's totally different from California and
Woo.
from Mississippi.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, so you get these differences that, you know, come up. And, you know, in California, it's like almost the death penalty if you do something to a kid. And in Mississippi, it's like, nah, nobody was hurt.
Right.
We got other things to worry about.
Right.
Mhm.
And then, you know, there's everything in between. Everything in between. Were you going to say
I had
something there?
I had a personal issue like that some years back concerning my stepdaughter and her dad spanking her, which was probably one of the 3 spankings she ever received in her life. But her and her sister had gotten this little scheme up together, and they decided they were going to tell, that her daddy had beat her, blah, blah, blah. We went through the whole process, the whole kit and caboodle. But she wound up sticking her little foot in her mouth, saying, oh, she wanted to harm herself. Well, they put her, because she was trying to get attention from her mother. We knew this, but we just had to let it run its course.
Right.
Well, she wound up in a hospital up in Tennessee, and by the time she was released, the social workers here opened their office on Saturday and allowed us to sign our papers to get out from underneath them.
Wow.
Shortly thereafter, the supervisor who wanted to browbeat us, mind you, and tell about how horrible of a father she had, who had daddy issues of her own, was seen on our local television station. A party had been raided at her house where the minors were leaving with alcohol and other substances. And she was saying, well, she didn't know. She didn't know it was wrong.
Right.
So, I mean, these are the people we deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. People are just out of control. What is that, Mr. Davis? As far as when you just said earlier, you were talking about your story, that there was nobody hurt. Now, I know that that's a big, if you look into the law and everything, a lot of the law is based on, was there a victim? Was there, was anybody hurt? If there wasn't, then there's no crime. As far as the CPS stuff, how much does that phrase say, did anybody get hurt or nobody got hurt? Does that play into
the way the law is written in California, and probably in a lot of states, is where the child was abused or there is a risk the child will be abused. And most of the cases hinge on that risk. I mean, sure, I see cases where it's alleged that a child has been hurt by a parent. Okay. And I have seen those cases. But a lot of the cases, nobody was hurt, but there's a risk that the child will be hurt. And you see those cases when there's drug abuse, alcohol abuse, that type of thing, or domestic violence. See, here's the thing that everybody is concerned about in a DV case. DV case, kid wasn't even around, or kid was in, another room with the door closed. They'll still take the kid away because the fear is that the DV will happen again and the kid will get hurt. Okay. Now, I can tell you, we have all heard about that happening, but I think it's skewed. I don't think that happens in a lot of cases,
right.
But we act as if that's what's going to happen if we don't remove this child. And I'm not saying domestic violence is good or bad, good. I'm not. What I'm saying is, I think we should be looking at these cases on a case-by-case basis and just don't automatically take these kids. The other day I argued a case in court to a judge, and one of the things I kind of got emotional about it, not intentionally, but just, I started telling a story that of this child and what would happen to her if we took her away from the parents, or at least the mother, and thinking about my own situation. Now, a lot of you may know that I lost my mother when I was 3 years old, and I wasn't reunited with her until I was 20. That's a hell of a thing for a kid. And, a lot of times we do this, and it's like, oh, it's automatic. These allegations were made. We're going to take the kid away. And we never really stop and think, what happens to the kid? How does the child feel? So what I tried to do in that case was I tried to make the argument from the child's point of view, not from the mother or the father's point of view. I tried to show the judge how this child is going to feel. Right? Luckily, the judge agreed with me, but made strict conditions.
You
Right.
saying talking about anybody being hurt? If a child has expressed that they want to be with one parent or the other, nobody is adherent. Nobody seems to be listening to her, and eventually begins to pull her own hair out because I mean, why else would you pull your hair out except
Yeah,
because you
I
have
mean, just the stress
issues?
alone from being in that situation
If
is
you
enough.
have pulled it out enough to where you have a bald spot,
Hmm.
we have a family member, lots of them who are in the medical field and stuff, and these are things that are noticed. So this is not an over exaggeration or concern. It is definitely a great one, and yet no one seems to address it. No one seems to care. No matter how many times you say it, it's irrelevant.
Hmm.
It's like you're talking on deaf ears. As a matter of fact, even to the point of being told, "We don't have time to listen to that."
Right. Unbelievable.
And that is a quote. Yes, we don't have time to listen to that. So, okay, when would
Wow.
you have time? Should you pencil me in?
Right.
I
You
mean,
might pencil me in for this fact that you just stole my kids,
exactly.
but it's fine.
One of the things that I've noticed about the system is there are not enough workers to investigate each family like it should be investigated.
No, they're
So,
not.
so what happens is you start making generalities, and you're not giving that special attention. And each family deserves that special attention. But
Mhm,
we're kind of caught up in this cog, let's process these and get these out of the way.
mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And to be fair, you see that across life, across the board.
right.
There's not enough resources to really help these people
There's
in a lot of cases.
in Mississippi, there happens to be, and I just happened across this. There is a brochure. It's a little brochure. It says how to be a better parent. Okay, on the front of it, and it's a little trifold, and it's really cute. But if you were to read it, inside the section, it's how to be a better dad. Mom is rarely used, if any. Grandparent, foster care, foster parent, etc. Those terms are used more than mom, but very few, less than probably 30 times, I guess. But when you list dad and the things of a dad and about being a dad, it is listed in there into the hundreds of times, upwards of 3 digits. It is massive. You should look at it sometime if you have a chance. It is definitely against the father. And they are pro mom all the way, and that's sad because in some circumstances it's not pro mom. It should not be. It should,
Well,
it
I
should be
mean,
this.
first of all, it shouldn't really be pro anything. These social workers and all of these people that work for these people are supposed to be a neutral post, like looking and as far as I know, they're not even supposed to be investigating. Are they the social workers? They're not supposed to actually be investigators, are they, Mr. Davis?
To a certain extent, yes and no, because they're all, the problem is, look, you give somebody power, you know,
Mhm.
Right.
They're going to run with it.
what's that old saying? Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, I never heard that, but that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many human frailties and weaknesses and prejudices that enter into the system. And, you can't ferret everything out when things are trying to move so fast. There's so many cases. We don't have enough resources and money to service all of these families to get down into what really happened.
Hmm.
There's somebody that posted earlier, and they said something to the comment of, just do your services and you'll get your kids back, or something to that
Yeah,
effect. That's not true.
not
Hmm.
even close.
And what I hear a lot of people say is, at the disposition hearing, well, my attorney told me to plead no contest and don't have a trial because all I have to do is the services the social worker said I had to do.
But that's all opinionated.
Well, not only is it opinionated, it's not true.
Hmm.
Okay. If you do your services, you are not guaranteed to get your child back.
No,
So I'm sorry.
but you're not guaranteed to have them removed either.
Right. So, a lot of people in California don't have a trial at the disposition hearing. And the
Hmm.
disposition hearing, in my humble opinion, is the most important trial in the juvenile dependency scheme.
Hmm.
And it's the hardest trial for the social worker to win. So when you don't have a trial, you give the social worker a free pass.
Right.
So let me give you an example. Even if the allegations they make against you are true, even if they're true, at the disposition hearing, the social worker has to prove two things. The social worker then has to prove by clear and convincing evidence, which is a higher burden of proof, that you are a substantial danger, not just a danger, a substantial danger to the child.
Mhm.
Now, think about that for a second. You'd have to be one bad MF to be a substantial danger to a child.
Mhm.
And just because you got into a domestic violence altercation with your wife when you were drunk, that does not mean you're a substantial danger. But yet we kind of treat it as it is sometimes.
Mhm.
But the second thing, and here's the most important thing, and a lot of people want to ignore this. The second thing is, if they prove you're a substantial danger by clear and convincing evidence, they also have to prove by clear and convincing evidence that there are no less restrictive alternatives to just taking the kid. In most reports that I see, they don't even talk about alternatives.
Mhm. We
But
even
but that's what
Oh,
but
sorry.
that's
Go
one
ahead.
of the things they have to prove.
Mhm.
So, sometimes what I do, and I get a lot of dirty looks about this, and I don't know if it's because, okay, you're going to expose us, or
Sorry,
you're really
please
making
don't
my
wait. If
you
it's
you.
still like this in a few minutes, you can try troubleshooting in the Google Home app.
Sorry
You
about
can
that.
also try
Was
unplugging
was
Google,
that
the
you?
quiet
device
down.
and plugging it back in.
I'm gonna
Was
have
that
to
Gary?
unplug Google. Sorry about that.
So they have to prove a substantial. No, they have to prove that there's no less restrictive alternatives. So one of the things that you can do is sometimes you can subpoena in the worker who's most knowledgeable in this area and say, oh, what are some of the alternative things that we can do so that we don't have to place the child in foster care?
Mhm.
Here's one. Have grandma move in with the kids and the parent
Mhm.
to be that extra set of eyes and ears. Here's another one. California used to have something called Family Preservation Services, which meant just what it said. We're going to give you services so we don't have to take your kid.
Mhm.
And then you'd have counselors or a team come out to your house every day, 3 times a week, to make sure everything was cool with the kids. Taking the kids and putting them in foster home is like the last thing that we should be doing, but it's the most that we do. It's almost automatic.
Correct.
It's like
Now,
automatic, and it's not supposed to be that way.
Mhm.
Many years ago, a judge who used to work in the juvenile court in LA County gave me a book. Okay, and it was a book written by a Stanford law professor who helped draft the original laws for CPS cases in California. And what the book was about was his opinion that this has gotten way out of control, that
Yeah.
he never wrote these laws to be used the way they're using.
Mhm.
They kind of like took what he wrote and then injected them and started bastardizing the whole legal system. And one of the reasons, in my humble opinion, is because the counties figured out how to make money from taking your kids away
Mhm.
under the guise of, we got to protect the kiddies.
Mhm. Yep. It's all about
now,
pension.
Now, this was a book written by the guy who wrote the laws in California.
right.
They
The
found a way to
dispositional.
manipulate the system.
Does anybody listen to that? No. No,
Well,
we're protecting kiddies. Who can get mad at us as long as we're protecting the children?
yeah, it's just like no one listens to the studies of that. They say the harm that's done with the children of being removed. University of Baltimore has a great study of the harm of removing a child from the home over the fact of leaving them in an abusive situation. And 9.5 times out of 10, even if abuse is present, these kids are better off being
Let
with their
them know.
parents for the long-term effects that they're showing the results are leading to.
I have
Whether
a
it's
relative who
alcoholism,
Darren,
all of these
Darren,
things.
email me that link. I want to see that.
Yep.
I might
I
try to
have
use.
a relative who is works for the education department in our state. She's pretty up the food chain there. Anyway, she said through her experience, and along with a lot of other teachers do agree, that children who come to school, they'll be making good grades. Maybe their environment at home is not as much as someone else's. Maybe they don't have the nicest of things or whatever. There may be something simple. Maybe they were, like you said, maybe there was a argument between mom and dad one day or something, and it got out of hand or something to that effect. That removing the kids is not always the best, because you'll begin to see a fall in their education, because what to them is normal and what to you is normal, it's not the same. And you go messing with that, you can really mess a person up, a child.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it can
I
be a
agree.
really bad situation.
Hey, listen, Christy,
Uh-huh.
I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story and your ideas.
Mhm.
Are you interested at all in helping us reform CPS?
I am also, I would love to.
Okay, I'm going to tell our producer, Grace, she's listening,
Mhm.
to contact you.
Okay.
Maybe you can be a captain of the state of Mississippi,
Uh-huh.
a focal contact point, and maybe you'll even want to do a show on our network here,
Mhm.
see how to fight CPS and win, Mississippi style.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds interesting. Yes,
All right.
definitely. I would love to talk about it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. You have a good
All
day.
right. All
All right.
right.
There we go. I just sent that to you, so you can have some good reading for later.
Good, good, good. Hey, Darren, we have a person coming on. Well, before I bring this other guest on, I want to address Miss Carol Chatier. Hello, Miss
Sir?
Carol. How are you? We are still looking for you to join our team, Miss Carol. Please contact Grace, or Grace, please contact Carol, because we really want to have her on our team. Okay.
Absolutely.
So here I'm bringing on another guest. Let me see if she's there. Miss Shane E, are you there? Shane, are you there?
Sorry, it's pronounced Shanae, but yes, hi there.
Hi, do you
How
do
are you,
video?
fellas?
Do you do video?
I do, but my battery is really low, and it just kept on telling me because it's also not very bright because I'm sitting in my car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for logging on. What question did you have for me this evening?
So I want to be, I guess, careful because that's me and my daughter right there. My daughter, who's the one that this is about. But let me just first start by saying, I think how everything happens for a reason. And I ran into your info, and the topic that I was on was, about the 42 USC 1983. And I don't know, you just said something, just hit home. I was like, oh my God, I need to talk to this guy. I already have an attorney, and he already hired on 6 other ones, for her case. But I got to talk to this guy, And so anyways, I started looking at some of your other things, and I think you could really help me. Just help me also watch if I'm saying something that I don't know I shouldn't be. Please, if you don't mind. And what you said was major about the security and the damage that it has on the kids, which is part of my whole situation. It's more of a story and a following question, but I think I have to tell you a little bit about, the beginning of the story first. When I already had a CPS case, and that was a total legit reason. That is why they should be taken immediately. My son Elijah was born under the influence. So I stand by that 100%. But I did everything that I needed to do. I got my kids back. And then, I'm a good mom. I was in a bad relationship. And that's exactly what I was saying to them. But anyways, the fallout with me and their dad left me in a situation where we were getting evicted from Victorville. And then we had no running water. And I knew he was going back to his dad's, and I said, you have to take the kids. They're babies. They can't just be here with no running water. They put everything in their mouth. This is not possible. Vincent's older. He's my oldest. He's 15. I shouldn't be. My oldest, 15-year-old, was in school at the time. And so dad did take them, but I didn't realize he wasn't going to let me see them at all. So here I am driving from Victorville to Orange County daily to see them, and I'm not able to. He won't allow it. And this is just out of anger between what's happened between him and I. Nothing to do with them, which is not okay. But
So
anyway,
a
the cops
narcissistic
became
situation.
yeah. So the cops became familiar with me because they would tell me every day I needed to leave because I didn't live there and the kids were residing there. And yeah, so I would. And then one day he allowed me to see them. I told my son to grab his shoes. I saw he almost grabbed drug paraphernalia. I grabbed him. I'm live on YouTube. Okay, so sorry. And I immediately grabbed some clothes and went to the social service office and applied for emergency housing. And can you shut this? Thank you. Sorry. And I didn't realize at the time that they only give you that for 2 weeks and then you need to figure something out. They didn't tell me that when I was offered it. And then I was pregnant at the same time. So during that 2 weeks, I also went into labor and had my youngest daughter, who this is regarding. And, 3 of those days were out the window. So I had to ask his dad if we could stay there until the first of the month, the room that I was going to be renting would be ready. And plus I was going to electrician school, and, I was a third in my class, was doing great there. And so then anyways, so during these 2 weeks, Leslie, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have said that either, huh? We bump into each other. The rule was that we are not to speak on the property of, that residence at all. That rule was broken because I had to double back.
You have a no contact?
Well, no. It was just a rule from, in order to stay there for the 2 weeks. Don't let him know that you're here. Don't speak to him. No yelling, no cop contact, anything like that. And I was like, that's all fine because that will not happen if he wasn't here. Anyways, so I was registering my son. I needed to double back to grab something. I didn't realize, luckily, oh, darn it, he had already beat me there. So I asked him if he could just hand me that. And he was like, why are you here? And anyways, it turned into me telling Vincent to record because I did not want, dad to think I was being problematic because I wasn't. It escalated. And then from the angle that my son was standing at, it did legit look like he punched me right in the face. He didn't. He pushed me, but I think my reflex to his hand coming towards me added to the effect. And then I told my son to call 911. Well, dad was also doing that. And then they came, but they were familiar with me. Every other encounter that they had, they were telling me to leave and I had to just drive away. Despite the fact that I told them, like I live in Victorville. You saw me yesterday and the day before that. I just want to see my kids. I told them about our CPS case, how it closed. He doesn't have custody like that. I should at least be able to see them. And then, anyways, he had a mark on him. I don't know where it came from. And they ended up arresting me for domestic violence. And I was like, wait a second. I didn't even realize that was going to happen. It threw me way off guard because I told them everything I was doing. I was in school. I took them, on an emergency situation. I told them about the housing and everything. And and they still arrested me, wouldn't let me show them the video. So then my son showed my mom showed my dad went to the police station. 3 days later, they let me out. And I had no clue that CPS was already en route. The case was already open. I didn't know that because we already had a prior case. So there was nothing we could do anyways that was happening. And, but I didn't know this and I didn't think that I had to do anything that they were telling me to do because you guys just gave me my kids back. I was doing my motherly due diligence. I did exactly what I was supposed to do in that situation. Give me my kids back. There's no reason why you should have them. I'm breastfeeding. Like, give me my kids. This is crazy. I didn't think that I was, outside of my rights or anything, like I thought for sure, like I was going to be backed by the law and offered assistance, if anything, not what happened, which is they took my kids. I had no say so. They didn't even care about any initial investigation into the situation at all because it was the sheriffs that sent them out there because of the domestic violence that, we had both contacted them on. And as a result of that, because how you were saying taken from them taken from us is how, sorry, hold on. Okay, so, sorry. I get so fearful of that having damage on my kids too, because when they came for them, they were asleep. And I said, so they didn't even wake up? Are you kidding me? And you guys are telling me that I'm harming them because of what they seen between me and their father, but you guys came and took them from their beds as they slept. And you're telling me during that transition from their beds to the car, they didn't wake up? And then they said no, because grandpa had put them in there, like as if that changed what was going to happen to them when they woke up looking for me and I wasn't there. It just was. So yeah, that's definitely more traumatizing than whatever they saw between me and their dad. Anyways, so then we had to do that whole placement meeting. And I said a certain person was not an option at all. This person is not an option because it was, his mom, and we don't get along anyways, which is why I just didn't want to have to deal with that on top of what I was already dealing with. And I expressed this to them on top of the fact that her own firstborn has lifelong problems because of her not paying attention. And despite this, and anyways, I didn't think she was an option because she wasn't a citizen, the last case, right? But I wanted to make it clear anyways, even though I didn't think that she was an option because she wasn't a citizen and she doesn't have citizenship. She can't get them anyway, just in case. These are the two other reasons. They placed them with her anyways. And she only had her for 6 weeks before I get a phone call that, we need to go to Loma Linda because your daughter's having seizures, which leads me into like, this is the whole, injury thing. I don't know if I'm allowed to speak freely about that, or is there things that I should or shouldn't say?
Well, you shouldn't mention any names for sure.
Okay. So then I'm just gonna. I'm the worst at short and sweet. Okay, but I've been thinking I've been doing okay so far. I'm gonna try to.
Yeah, you're doing great. It's hard to talk to the king in a short amount of time. I know that for a fact.
Yeah,
you
really.
Talk to the best of the best here, so you got to spit it out in just a few moments. So it's very nerve-wracking. I've been there too.
You could probably hear my shaking my voice. See, I'm supposed to be preparing for like being deposed myself, which is going to be hard because I know, you're absolutely right to feel this is new to me also. This is what I'm about to say. You're allowed to express your emotions 100%, but you can't just act out. It scares people. They don't understand. They don't know you, they don't know how to cover you or anything. It's scary. And, that's why it's not okay, because before I was like, feel your feelings, however you feel, dude, feel it, but really you can't act like that. You can't, if somebody asks you for the time at the gas station, you can't go into your whole situation. Like you're going to freak them out. They don't understand what's happening. But anyways, sorry.
So
I do that too.
We're at 6 weeks after.
Yeah. 6 weeks. She's only had him for 6 weeks. And then now I'm sitting in the ICU in Loma Linda. Which, let me just say this, those 6 weeks of just the visitation that I was supposed to get, mandatory to me, those were my hours, mandatory, not even getting those like I'm supposed to be. And I was very, very vocal with my social workers. They obviously didn't like me in the beginning because, like I said, I was not cooperative. I wasn't even kind, I don't think, when I kept thinking that they were like doing something that they weren't supposed to. I was annoyed, and I even said that to her, like, I don't care what you think about me personally. That has nothing to do with what you're here for. You know, like, are my kids safe with me or not? You know, that's your whole purpose, lady. Just do that. And so I anyways, and she liked grandma, and you know, anything grandma said went, and I was just a, POS because of the file that they have from before, which I agree with you. Reading it from paper, like, that's awful, like, very awful, and I am going to pay for it every day. I mean, he's autistic now, and I advocate for my son. It's not easy. That's a whole nother show, but
So because the show's coming to an end,
oh
and
my
I
God,
want to
I'm
get
so
to an
sorry.
answer. I want
Okay.
to get to an answer. Like, where can we get
Yeah.
to an answer here from Mr.
Okay.
Davis? Is
So
he too?
I got an attorney on contingency. Okay.
Yep.
And but when I did that, I guess when we filed the original tort, whatever it's called, I guess as a parent am outside of whatever a parent would get from the trauma of my situation. Like, my daughter was placed on her stomach and she suffocated, but it was totally preventable because before this, I had called her when I finally did get a FaceTime with my kids. I said, "Show me baby." And then, she was sleeping on her stomach. There was nothing around her at the time, but I still, go and get your grandma right now. And I said, "You can't sleep my baby like that. That's not safe," yada, yada. She wasn't listening to me. I hung up on her, called the social worker and said, "Educate this woman now." As we speak, she has my daughter asleep on her stomach. And then, you know what, for the life of me, and, if my attorney hears me say this, he's probably going to stress him out, but I do not know. I don't even know how I don't know the end result of that phone call, because I know for a fact I didn't just leave it alone, but I, for the life of me, can't remember if I called her back or, because I do remember I don't know if it was another time or that time, but she said she was going to be seeing them on the weekend anyways, but I think that was the bassinet situation. Anyway, so she was fine then. 2 weeks later, though, is when I got that call from Loma Linda. Okay. And I didn't even think about the sleeping on her stomach because they told me she was having seizures. So I'm thinking, oh my God, my daughter's epileptic. Like, how's that? Like, how did we not know that before this, And I totally was distracted from that prior encounter until finally, like, because she kept coming to the hospital to see my daughter, but not bringing my kids, which she's supposed to, because our visitations are still like supposed to be happening. And I didn't understand why she couldn't do that. And then finally, when she did, my daughter ran up to me, and she was 5 at the time. Okay. So I 100% believed her without a doubt, knew that this was truth. And she ran to me and just said, "Mommy, mommy, baby was sleeping on her face and she was purple." And then I immediately, like, obviously outside of the, rage that I felt and the violence that I felt when she said this to me, as I'm standing my daughter's in the ICU, and then she's calling my daughter a liar in front of my face when my daughter's telling me there's no way she could be lying. How would she doesn't know what color somebody changes when they don't have oxygen. And you told my daughter not to lie. Like, that was so awful to me, because how could you do that to her? First of all, she trusts you and you're calling her a liar. Like, she's confused now. Now she doesn't understand why she's feeling the way she's feeling, but she's hurt and she's a whole bunch of other things that you're putting her through as my daughter's in the ICU for this. So I called the social workers and I told them what they said. I told the hospitals first, the doctors, because they didn't even know. They had to start from scratch, because when grandma brought her into the hospital, what her original statement about what happened, they had to start from scratch. Basically, she just said that she was given to her unhealthy, and that it looked like she had vomited and then choked, right? Nothing about sleeping on her stomach or anything like that. So they didn't know why did she vomit? Was she sick? Was she whatever? So they ended up having to do 2 blood transfusions. And my daughter was only 3 months old at the time. 3 months old.
Wow.
Yeah. I know. Only one of my 5 kids that breastfed like a champion. Like, that's a whole
Oh
And I
my
didn't even
God.
get to do that anymore. And it was like, it was an amazing experience to like, you
Yeah,
know,
they
like,
separate that from you. It's awful.
yeah,
It
it's
suck.
crazy.
It suck.
And I told him we were going to have problems with this woman from the get go. I mean, I said, look, she's not an option. I'm just going to tell you, I'll tell you quickly. I'm doing pretty good. I'm going to keep going.
No, you're
So,
doing fine.
her own firstborn, you know, his dad is a cross country driver. You know, he calls home and he says, listen, he's sick. And, he says, take him to the doctor. He gets home 4 days later. He says the same embrace he went to give him hello, he rushed him to the hospital. He's a walking miracle. Like they don't know how he survived that. But the left side of his brain is burnt and he had a learning disability forever. And I'm telling them this. They hear that is literally my reason, besides the fact that me and this woman don't get along. This is the reason why. I just don't trust her. You know, and
So
like we're in the litigation, like we just opened active litigation right
back
now.
to the hospital, and you see your baby's turning blue and everything. What happens at the ICU?
Oh no, I didn't see her then. I saw her once she got to Loma Linda, but first she went to San Antonio.
Okay.
Yeah, she went to San Antonio, which again, this is I don't know, I'm gonna research this before anything, but you know, we all had to take a CPR class. Like that should have legit been fresh in your mind. You only had it for 6 weeks. Like how did, because when I got the paramedics report, which I had to like demand, it said that, you know, upon arrival, baby was blue and non-responsive and grandma was attempting CPR. And then I'm just like, oh my God, thinking like, oh, like even right now, like I'm trying so hard. I have to tell myself that she was born like this. That's what I tell myself every day, just so that I don't have to feel like, like, why
Rihanna,
didn't my mommy senses tingle? Like, how come I didn't know, like, one of my kids is in the world right now and, like,
hey,
you know, literally dying for air.
hey, Rihanna.
Yeah.
How about this? You have such a story that needs a lot more than a 3-second overview. You want to come back on
Oh,
tomorrow?
this is so much. You have no idea.
Yeah. Do you want to? How
I'm,
about we'll have Grace get in touch with you, or you can get in touch with Grace, and let's pull you in tomorrow, and you can start the show with us, and then you can let everybody hear this, because this is way more than a 2-second response from Mr. Davis for sure. Are you down with doing that?
oh yeah. See, well, my question, I will totally be down with doing that. My question after hearing all of that is, they didn't even act like they know, like the reason on the
Hold
hospital paper.
Hold on
Okay.
a second. Because this is like the third time you said you're going to ask us a question.
Oh no, this literally, that was the beginning of it.
Starts with what, why, how. But
Do we have?
You keep telling us more and more stories.
Sorry.
Why don't you get your video camera fixed and come back on the show tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific time? Okay.
Okay.
And have the whole list ready.
Grace, I want you to get in touch with this young lady and invite her back. She's going to be the first guest tomorrow, and we'll pick up with her story then. But
I'll probably be the only guest, to be honest, Grace.
I do want to thank you for coming in and sharing tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay. Hey, Darren, I want to thank you for being a guest host, not a guest host, a co-host tonight.
All right.
And we'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And good night to everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.